Hey there, today I'm going to show you how to use a Google Doc set up like this with tags that you'll want to replace with data from Google Sheets, maybe something like this, and then be able to send the result as a PDF in an email, or send it as HTML in that email, or save the copy as a Google Doc. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. First, I'm going to show you the setup on the Google Doc, and then we'll show you really quick on the Google Sheet, and then we'll get into the app script. So I do have links for the templates here that you can download into your own Google Drive of the Google Doc and the Google Sheet with the app script. And so you can go ahead and make a copy of those now if you want to follow along. So in the Google Doc, we have these template tags, and if you notice, I have them surrounded by curly braces. And so for each one, I have a unique tag or name, and then I have it surrounded by 2 left curly braces and 2 right curly braces. And so this just allows you to have a standard way of replacing those. One thing to note is if you have any kind of formatting, it will carry through into what you get replaced. So that's pretty much it on this. You can set up the Google Doc however you want. Just make sure you have these conventions like this, and that every tag you have here, you have the associated tag in the app script. So let's go ahead and look at the Google Sheet real quick. So I have 2 different setups here, and I'll show you how to do both of these as we get into this. So this offers tab is just kind of a simple data setup. And then what we're using over here is just a checkbox to determine which report we want to send out or offer. And then on this report settings, we can select a name, and then the associated data gets pulled through for the report. All right, so that's it on this end. There is a script menu here that I'll show you right off the bat. And this is how we determine which one gets sent. And so let's go ahead and jump into the app script. If you're opening this up from scratch or from the template I provided you, then go ahead and go to extensions and app script and pull this up. So if your screen is all white here instead of dark, go ahead and download this extension called Black App Script. It's going to help your eyes if you're doing much coding, if you want to learn more, and you're going to be in the script editor. I would highly recommend it. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. First of all, with the overall app script stuff that you're going to need to know, regardless of which direction you're going to go, Google Doc, PDF, or HTML. And so I'm going to give you the overall first, and then you guys can go ahead. I'm going to have chapters in this video, so you can skip ahead. If, for example, you're going to do PDF, I'll let you know when you can go ahead and skip forward, and then you'll know that you didn't miss anything that you needed to know when you jump forward. So first of all, this is just an on open menu, so I'm not going to go really into this real quick. Just UI here, create a menu, add items, and add to UI. So I'm not going to spend time getting into that. I'm going to get into the meat of this that you guys came for. So I'm going to kind of demo the overall basics in here, just basically in this part here. And then I'm going to show you how to authorize the script real quick, and then we'll jump into the specifics. So first of all is the ID. And so if you guys are making a copy of the templates that I'm providing, the links I'm providing below, make sure in the new copy that you grab this ID from the Google Doc and then switch it out in here. Otherwise, your script is not going to work correctly. So once you have done that, then the next thing we're doing in the script is we're just getting the spreadsheet in this variable here, let SS. And then I have 2 different options here. So I already showed you, we have the offers tab here, and then we have report settings. And so for some of you guys, you may just want to keep it simple and use something like this. Other you guys, you may want to use something like this. So I'm kind of showing you both options here. This option 1 is using the offers tab. And so what we're doing in this case is we're getting that sheet, and then we're getting these check boxes from this column here. And so whichever one is checked is the one that we're going to do. And so the way I have it is if you have multiple checked, it's going to do the first one, and then you have to run it again. So I don't have it iterating at the moment to generate multiple reports. It's just a little more complexity. I was trying to keep this as simple as possible so I could explain it to you guys in a short as possible manner. And so we're just getting the values from there, and then I'm using this dot flat method. It just converts the array from complex, like, let's see, like this, and then it has multiple brackets inside for that data, and I'm converting it with that flat to a single array. So then what it ended up being is true, false, false, etc. In this case, so true, a checked checkbox evaluates to true by default. Other ones evaluate as false when they're not checked. And so basically, this is what's going to happen if we get this data. There's going to be some more falses in here, but that's what it's going to return as. And so what I'm doing in here next is determining what row we're generating the report for. And so on this check array that I just did, so if you call this check, this would be kind of what's coming back. And this index of is telling me what position it's finding true in. And so when you do array, it starts at 0. And so 0, 1, 2 would be what these would evaluate to. And so if we did this check on this array, we'd have 0. And so I'm adding 2 to actually get our row number. If you look at this, this would be 0 in the index of, but it's row 2, so I'm adding 2. And so if we had this one, for example, this would evaluate as index of 1, which plus 2 equals 3. So that's how we're getting to the right row number. Then if the row is less than 2, we want the script to stop. And so that's what the return does. It just stops the script. And the reason for that is this index of, if it can't find it, it returns -1. And -1 plus 2 is actually equal to 1. And so we want to make sure that it's not going to return client name, client email, service, etc. Because that header row is actually row 1. So if it passes all its checks, then we're just going to get that data from that row and go on our merry way. The next thing is we have this option 2, which comes from this report settings. And so if this is what you want to use, you can either delete this whole option 1 here like this, or you can comment it out like I have done with this option 2, which is / and asterisk, and then asterisk and /, and then uncomment option 2 like this. And then this one's very simple. We're just going to get that report settings sheet and get that data right from here. And so this one, I already have these formulas set up, so that way it'll pull the rest of the data from that. So this option 2 is a lot simpler in that flow. So let's go ahead and reset it for now. And we'll continue on our merry way. And we're almost done with the general part, and then we can shoot off into the specifics. So one more note I want to make in here, and I'm going to show you how to authorize a script. And so what I'm doing here is when the app script takes these dates from here, it basically returns, in this case, the string would be March 15, 2024, and it would tell you the time, which would be midnight, and tell you the time zone. Well, we don't want all that data to come forward into this thing. We don't want this offer to show March 15, 2024, GMT minus whatever, and so forth. So what I'm doing in this is I'm just going to format that date just to show up as month, day, and year, just to keep that simple. So that's all we're doing there. So we've gone through these options, and the next thing we need to look at is the template. So the template this is called an object. I'm not going to go too deep into a lot of these explanations, but I'm going to give you enough so that we can kind of mess with it and update it for your own project. So what this allows us to do is these are called keys and these are called values. And so what it allows us to do is basically take these keys and then we can match it to our Google Doc and replace it with these values. So this data 0 is going to be this John Smith in this example, since this is checked. So data 0, arrays start at 0, if you remember. So this would be 0, 1, 2, and so forth on that data variable. So name And then basically I'm just tying each one. So if you notice, I'm skipping one. One is the email. We don't need to put their email in this currently. If you are putting that email, you could just put that in there in just a simple way, something like this. Do email and data 1. So I'll go ahead and leave that in here just for now. So name, email, service, price, etc. And then when we get down to the date part, instead of doing data 6, which would be that one date, I'm using this new one that I made that actually formats the date. All right, we can go ahead and authorize our app script now. And so you can authorize it from the script editor by running any function. Otherwise, if you have a script menu in the Google Sheet, you can also run any of these functions from here. And that will also trigger the script authorization flow. So let's go ahead and just run it from here. I'm going to click run on the open one, authorization required, review permissions. And so we can just select our Google account here. And then this is the part that freaks people out sometimes when they see this screen and Google hasn't verified this app. And so what this means is it's basically Google's legal disclaimer saying they did not build this app and so they're not liable for it. And so what they're really reminding you to do is to know what is in the script and don't just authorize scripts from unknown developers. So if you know the developer or you've done the script, then you're good to go. So in this case, we'll go ahead and click on advanced and then go to client offers. And so client offers is actually the name of the script, as you can see from here. So we're going to go ahead and go to client offers. And then it tells us what access it needs. And so I'll just take a second just to explain what these are. So the Google Drive files, what that is going to do, what we're accessing in the script for that is saving a copy to a folder. And also when we do the Google Doc, we're going to save a copy in the Google folder as well. So, and then see, edit, create, and delete all your Google Docs documents. We need to access Google Docs in order to access our template. And then we also need to access our Google Sheet that we're getting our data from. The external service is what we need to convert to PDF. And then finally, because we're sending this as an email, we're using the send emails you. So one thing to note is I'm not using the Gmail. Otherwise, this would say see, edit, create all your Gmail emails. So I'm using a mail app, which has a little bit more restricted permissions. So that's just a quick explanation. Hopefully that helps you guys if you are working with AppScript and you're not sure what this means. So once we're good to go, we'll go ahead and click allow. And that is the final part in the script authorization. Now that it's authorized, now it's ready to roll. So next thing we got to do is we got to get our Google Doc, make a copy of it, open the copy, get the body of the copy, and replace the text. And so I'll go a little deeper in this, but I don't want to get too deep into the weeds. So Drive app is how we're getting our file from Google. And then I'm going to make a copy of it. Once I make a copy, I get that ID and open the copy with our document app, because now we want to open our Google Doc and not just manipulate the file. And then in our Google Doc, we want to get the body, and that's basically getting all this text in here. So that way we can do our replacement. And then what we're doing in here, so if you remember, this is called template. And so what I'm saying is for every key in template, I want to do the following. And so for every key in template, I'm going to do this thing called replace text. And so in Google Docs, you can do replace text. And I'm going to search for this and replace it with this. So what this is going to end up being is that key. So for example, name. And so it's going to search for 2 left curly braces, 2 right curly braces with name in between. And so that's how we set this up. And so that's what it's going to find and replace, in this case, with John Smith. And then, because that's what this key is about. And so if we put template key, for example, it would be template name. And when you look in an object for this, for the key, it will return the value. And so in this case, we ran the script. Name will be here, and then what will end up being here is actually John Smith. All right, let's go ahead and keep rolling before I lose you guys. So doc, save and close. So we're going to save and close that Google Doc. Then we're going to set the name. And then what we're using here is called a template literal. And so in the template literal, we can use variables such as our name here. You can see it's highlighting if we do that. And you can use a variable in here as long as you wrap it with a $, left curly brace, and a right curly brace. And then all you got to do there is remember that instead of using this for a string or this for a string, you want to use, it's above the tab button, these back tick is what it's called. And inside that is then when you can do fancy string, client name is data 0. So that's how that works there. And so we're just setting the name of the new Google Doc, and we're going to be able to use that when we get the file. So next off, we're going to get the URL from that new Google Doc, and we're going to use that in the email so they have a link to it. And then what we're going to do here is actually set the permissions for that Google Doc, because otherwise natively the permissions are restricted. So we need to make sure that they can at least see the file. So that's what we're doing. We're going to get that new copy with Drive App and then set the sharing permissions to Drive App, access anyone, and then they can view that. And then finally, we're going to move that to a folder. And so I have a folder set up here. And so you can set up a new folder like this, and name it whatever you need to. And then in that folder, you want to get this ID and set it. So if you're made a copy of this, make sure you set this to your own folder. So that way I can move it to that folder. And then we're almost done here on this Google Doc. So one of the last things we're going to do is actually send an email. We're going to use Mail app. I'm using this. It's a little more secure than Gmail app. So and that is now where we're pulling that email and then setting the subject. And you'll notice here we're using those template literals again. So new offer for their name, and then your offer for our bronze level service, etc. So HTML body, you can use HTML tags. So you can use things like new line, paragraph. You can bold things and so forth. I'm not using a whole bunch in here, but that is what you can do there. The one thing we are doing here is a hyperlink. So click here to view your offer. So to wrap things up, we're going to get today's date so we can log it. And then under option 1, assuming we're in here, we're going to set the value in row 9, which is offer sent, with that date of today. And then we're going to uncheck that checkbox so it is done. And then if we had option 2, this is the option here to do that. And that's getting the offers sheet, because in this case, we wouldn't be working from the offer sheet. We'd be working from the report to settings. But if we're over here, we want to actually save that offer date back to here while we're over here. So we need a way to reference how, what row this is in, because this report settings works without the checkbox. So you don't need the checkbox determined because you're determining which one you're sending based on the client name. So without this being checked, then we need to determine which row we are in. And so we're using a similar method to what we were before. Instead of doing the checkboxes here, we're doing the names. So we're getting the names, get the index of, and then once we get that row, we'll set that value for today. So I'm going to go ahead and recomment this so we're going to work correctly. All right, so we've already authorized the script. So this should work as is. We go ahead and get rid of our little security alert here. And so let's go ahead and send as Google Doc. Make sure I check this. And we're going to send as Google Doc. And here in a second, as long as I didn't screw anything up while I was showing you. Okay, it added a offer sent date there, and it undid the checkbox. So that part is good. Let's see if we got a new offer. So there we go. New offer for John Smith. Your offer is ready. So we have two options. It shows it there just automatically, or we can click here to view our offer. And there we can see our Google Doc. Now, one thing to note is because I'm sending this from the same email address, I actually have editing permission because I'm actually the owner of this. But if I wasn't the owner, then I would have view only access. So this, you can see it replaced all the text. So there's those dates in the friendly format. John Smith, bronze level. You can see that's still bold, and price of $350. And then there's the service includes and plan service begin. And then there is our picture that we had. So that's pretty cool. And if we go to our offers folder, you can see it also populated there. All right, awesome. So let's go ahead, and before we wind up with this one, let's go ahead and just switch this around and make sure it works for option 2. So I'm gonna uncomment, flip those around, and then down here, I'm gonna comment out option 1, and let's make sure option 2 is working. And so let's go ahead and get rid of these extra things here so we know if we got a new one coming through. And so this is unselected. Let's go ahead and take that offer sent out so we'll know it populated correctly. So John Smith. So this time let's run it from this menu. Let's do save as Google Doc again and see what happens this time. So finish script. If we look over here, there's the offer sent. Sure enough, there is our email. And there is our Google Doc. All right, so that worked both ways. So perfect. All right, so that's it for Google Doc. Up next, we will go to the PDF version. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into the PDF. So we've already reviewed our top level stuff here. And then as we scroll down, we're going to get that Google Doc using this Drive app, .get file by ID. And that Google Doc ID again is the one right here, which matches our Google Doc here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of that Google Doc. And then we're going to open that copy now, not in Drive app, but in Document app. And so now we're going to open that Google Doc in that Document app. And then we're going to get the body of that Google Doc. And then for each key, so remember these are keys. So for each key in template, we're going to replace the text of that key with the value for that key. And so we have 2 left curly braces, 2 right curly braces. And so this is going to wrap name and then service and then price and so forth. And so for each one of those, it's going to search this Google Doc for, in this case, name, just like this, and then replace it with the value. And so when you put an object like this and you refer to it and say template, for example, name, then it's going to return that associated value. And so if you change this to service, then it return the value that it had for service. And so when we have that key is name, then it's going to return John Smith and replace it. And then finally, we're going to save that Google Doc. And now what we're going to do for the PDF is we can actually just get a doc as application/PDF. So Google allows us to literally convert it on the fly to a PDF. And then we can set that name of that PDF. And we're using here is a template literal. So template literal, instead of 2 single quotes or 2 double quotes, we're doing 2 back ticks. And inside that, it allows us to use a $, curly brace, and then do whatever we want to in here. For a variable, for example, we can reference a variable in there. We could even do math, etc. So not going to get too crazy into this, but That's how the template literal works. And then, so basically what this would end up evaluating to is John Smith, offer date, what was it, 3/15/24, something like that, offer.pdf, what the file name would end up being. And so finally, we're going to get a folder. And so we have a folder here, and here is the ID. So we're just going to put that ID in here. And then when we get that folder, we can create that PDF inside that folder. And then we're going to send an email. We're using the Mail app. So inside that send email method, we have two. And so this is the email address here. And then we're doing that template literal to make a subject. So new offer for that data 0 again, if you remember, was name. So new offer for John Smith. And then the HTML body is basically an HTML body for your email. And so again, we're using template literal. So your offer for our data 2 was service. So that would be, in this case, bronze is ready. Don't wait to take your social media marketing to the next level. You'll find the offer details attached. And so now we have an attachment, and we're putting that PDF that we created over here inside the email as an attachment. Then finally, for a little housekeeping, since we made a copy of that Google Doc and then did the replacement, if we didn't trash it, that Google Doc would just kind of float around our Google Drive and pick up a little space and cloud it up. So we want to be good housekeepers and trash that file once we're done with it. And keep in mind, this is that Google Doc copy. It's not the PDF. So that PDF is still going to be safe and sound inside that folder. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up by setting that today's value. We're doing this variable with our utilities format, date format like we were before. And we're creating a new date. So this would be today. And then we're doing that month, date, year. So we're going to add that to this offer sent column. And then we're going to make sure we uncheck our checkbox. So let's go ahead and run this and see how this works. So let's go ahead and check. Let's do Susie Q here. And let's go ahead and send as PDF. And so what we're expecting to happen is get an email and see it pop up in this folder. So let's go ahead and send that real quick. So running script. And then what we should see is a date pop up here and that checkbox uncheck when the script is done successfully. So there we go. There's our date. So let's first see if we got an email. Sure enough, we got an email for Susie Q. So it picked up the right row. It didn't send it to John Smith. So silver level service. So that is correct. And then here is our PDF. So we open that up. Looks like our image made it through successfully. And there's our email with all the tags replaced, just like that. So that is perfect. Let's go ahead and delete that. Go to our folder, and there's that PDF there as well. All right, perfect. That worked great. All right, so we're going to send now our file as HTML. We're going to take this Google Doc, and instead of sending it as a Google Doc or as a PDF, we're actually going to embed this as HTML inside the email. All right, and so in this one, what we have here is I have a helper function that I'll get into in a second that converts our doc, our Google Doc to HTML. And so I'll show you that in a second. And let's actually jump down there right now. So what I feed into this is that Google Doc ID here. And so in this helper function, if we scroll down here, we have, this seems to be random here, but what this does is it makes sure we get the permission needed to do this conversion. So this doesn't do anything besides doing that when you authorize a script. And so what we're doing here is we're getting a fancy URL from Google, and you can see it's doing feeds, download, documents, export, export ID, export format, HTML. So inside that fancy URL, we're feeding that Google Doc ID. And so it's taken this ID right here, and it's going to feed it through this URL to then get our HTML text back. And so it's returning that text. And so if we go back here, this raw doc, what's going to end up doing after this function is done with it is going to turn this into HTML. And then what we're going to do is fill in template. And so we have another helper function. And so what it takes is the text. So the text is our HTML. And then it's going to take our template that we set up. So our template has name, service, etc. with the actual name. So let's say John Smith, bronze, service level, service price, etc. It's going to feed both of those into this function. And so what this does is a replace. And so this is some regex here. And so it's looking for those double brackets. And then when it finds it, it's going to replace it with our function from here. So when it finds double brackets, it's going to match it then to, okay, I found double brackets. So in this case, right, found 2 left, 2 right with something in between. So now it's going to take name and it's going to search in here for name. And when it finds name, then it's going to replace it with that. So that's what this fill and template does, and it basically iterates through the whole thing. So some of this is a little confusing to explain if you're not really familiar with the regex and stuff. And so then it's doing that replace there and substring, getting rid of those brackets, and then returning that. So once that's done, it'll take that HTML, do all those replacements, and then spit you back HTML with all the conversions done. And then finally, we're going to send an email now with that HTML. And so data 1 was that email address, and then new offer. So we could actually do, switch this to new offer for data 0 and include their name there. And then we're doing this completed. So what the completed is that HTML. So we would call that completed HTML here and change these, make that a little more intuitive to understand. And so once it sends the email, then it's just going to wrap things up and add, it's going to get today's date with that utilities format date that we used above to make things look pretty, just to make that month, day, year. And then I'll set that value and uncheck our checkbox. All right, so let's go ahead and run this and make sure this works all correctly. So let's go ahead and just check on John Smith. Looks like he hasn't had an offer sent yet as we've been working through this today. So we're going to go ahead and send him an HTML offer. So what we're expecting here is just an email. We're not going to have anything show up in our Google Drive. We're not using that on this function. So we should just get an email with this doc as the body of the email. So let's go ahead and run this. And at the end of it, we should have a date populate here and that unchecked, which already did. And so if we go to our email, looks like we got our email. And there is that Google Doc inside the body of our email, including that image. All right, that is it for the HTML. So guys, thanks for watching today. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a lot from this video. If this video was helpful for you, make sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for the other videos that we're going to drop on an ongoing basis. All right, thanks for watching, guys. See you again soon.